think we can skip the pledge unless anyone has any objections, and we can just move into that since it's not a normal formal meeting. We're here for a budget hearing. Well, not budget hearing, but a budget workshop. Okay. And do we need a roll call vote, or I think everyone's here except Mike. He's excused. Okay.
You can't have a vote.
Right, we don't have a vote. No, we don't have a vote. Robert.
Attendance roll call.
Attendance roll call.
Road call, but
We're all here except for Mike. We don't need that.
And Don?
Do you have any more coming from the advisory board?
I haven't heard from Jeff Ganon, and I got a thing from the Berries who will not be here.
The berries are not? Let's see.
They sent me an email.
Okay, and I have a questionnaire here. We all need to just initial whether you, for each of the bond issues, whether you're in favor of it or opposed to it. And I'll pass that around. You can just initial your name on the line, whether you're in favor or opposed to it. And we have to make a recommendation as the council and as the advisory board, which will go on the ballot and say whether you're in favor of each one or not.
the council's actually going to show whether they're in favor of it or not?
That's how it's written. It has to be. We have to show either we're in favor of it as a group or not. And
Okay, as a group, not as individuals, right?
Individuals, no. It's just,
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
It sound kind of odd.
Well, we
But
don't
But
see
so
the,
when we go down through
Right,
and put our
it'll just say-
initials on it, if it will indicate, you know, if the majority's in favor.
right. They'll
or
just say
not.
that either the council supports this by majority or opposes it, and the advisory board is either for this or against it as a body.
Do you just have one block for advisory board, or you just split us up?
All the names.
All the names are there, and then we'll just tally it, and it won't be individually on the ballot, though.
Okay.
just yours.
It'll just
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
You know right where I work, so no problem. Bring it on.
So I guess we can start by, if we can go around here, if anyone has questions or if you have, opinions on anything on a certain subject, if, there's a, what?
In relation
In relation to the budget, I don't know, Steve, if you want to introduce any changes you've made or anything before that.
Well, at this point, what you have in your booklets is what the initial request or recommendation of the town manager and the finance director is. At this point, you have heard some comments from the public. We've gone through each department. There hasn't been a lot of conversation. Bond initiative, we talked about that. You voted to put that out to the public, and we took out the revaluation, and we talked about putting that in the operating budgets, which we have done. So I want to go through some of the changes that we've made. Would that be helpful? Some of the changes that, recommendations that we have before you, okay?
Did you have any sheet?
Do you have?
An updated version.
Get a pen?
Yes, sir, I do.
I can.
We'll make the copies of what
Take that one,
what
give
it is.
it back to me, but you need
I didn't bring my book, so I don't know what car I
What
gave
did
him
you
last.
come for?
Just to take it all in.
Okay. I think so.
No, actually, I pretty much know that book pretty much inside and out now.
Do you want pink cards?
No, actually, I got stuff to scribble on. I'm looking.
Okay, all right.
Now, one of the big issues that people have been talking about and has been going around is the consolidation of the departments there under Ryan Layton. And maybe if you could explain, Steve, a little bit more about what is actually going to happen there in that, because I'm a little still confused about exactly
Yep.
how it's going to work.
Well, Wayne Rick is retiring, and in that process, we looked at how we could efficiently structure and be more productive, I guess, and have better oversight of all the departments. So our recommendation is to place Ryan Layton in charge of Public Works and Solid Waste, and continue to do the sewer department, all three. The positions that will be on a day-to-day basis in those operations, it will be an operations manager, which will fall on Marcel Obi, who has been there and been being trained to do that job. Buttons will be the operations manager of Public Works, and Jerry will remain at the sewer department, which doesn't impact this budget. The responsibilities are changing. All budget work and oversight will be done by Ryan Layton. All the planning will be done with Ryan in terms of oversight for upcoming jobs and day-to-day operations. the operations manager of Public Works will have quasi jurisdiction. He'll still manage the group there, the foreman, but he'll be more hands-on. He'll also be picking up anything to do with buildings throughout the organization. So if we have issues at any of our buildings, everything will go through him first, and so he can solve the day-to-day things that we have difficulties with. If and when we get all the buildings up to where we feel we can put together a preventative maintenance program, that will be something that he will work with the Public Works Director on and get that in place and have oversight of all that. He will be responsible for any of the road changes that we're doing for maintenance, the day-to-day things. But one of the things we're trying to do is plan better how to use our manpower better. We're going to be down another person there and a half. We need to look at doing things more efficiently and better. And our feeling is that Ryan is someone that can make that happen. So that's where that is at this point.
How is that a saving, Steve? If you're creating another position, how is that a saving? You're not getting rid of the people that are there now, and you're adding another person.
We're
How
getting
is
rid
that a
of 1.5
saving?
people in Public Works, okay? So you're losing one person, you're losing benefits. You have a retirement of a person who has full benefits, so you're losing all of that there. And you're going to be using your manpower more effectively than we have in the past.
And, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, I could see something, and maybe Rick would say the same thing as far as business-wise. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing even in every business is the idea of getting lean, is the idea you used to have, multiple layers of management that were just management. Now you actually have management that's actually working management. It's called a working foreman or whatever you want to be. Person that actually is the head of the group, but actually works with the group, that actually is one of the team versus the idea of just being the leader of the team. So what I see happening is what you see more and more is you actually have a person that is actually the budgetary person, sets a budget, sets a criteria, and you actually have a manager that's actually working with the team to get the project done. So basically what you do is, and I don't consider my business stepping back because I get more dirty than I used to be now, but it's the idea of this, the best way to manage something is to be part of it. And I see that's kind of where Button's going, is the idea of, and unfortunately to manage that way, you really can't be in the office crunching numbers and seeing where your budget is and figure out where things are going. I mean, and that's kind of where I see this happening, is the idea of you can actually take management, move it in to be more effective, actually hands-on type management, and that actually takes out some of the slack of the people that are not going to be there. I mean, if you're losing a person, if it's managed correctly, as being a working foreman, you should be able to take up that slack and save money. But
You don't think that an employee would be more beneficial to the group than another manager?
no, because a lot of times you actually miss that a little bit. I mean, if someone, it's really hard for someone that's managing a group to be able to manage that group sitting in the office. Unfortunately, in Button's position now is he really has to be almost that office job to do his other stuff as far as the budgetary and that stuff. I mean, he actually, to be able to be on site, not worrying about the budget and numbers and stuff, and actually more worried about getting, effectively the job done and making sure the materials are there and actually having a hand in it also, to me, is actually a big factor without worrying about who just called, worrying about a complaint and who worried, Steve would, if Steve had a complaint come through, and then it would be his responsibility to actually to actually dictate it down to Ryan, which instead of calling Buttons and taking him away from the job, it would be more of a management type thing, and then it would be taken from there. So I think what you're seeing is what, the whole world, when they talk about going lean, that's what lean is. It's actually work in management. It's not multiple layers of management. You actually have people that do the budget and oversee, and then you actually have work.
You lost a person last year in that department, so that was one person that you were down. You're going to lose another 1.5 people this year. So you've got to find a way to do the job more effectively and have people on the ground, not sitting in the office.
And that's what you've created, another person sitting in the office.
No, I have not.
Ryan doesn't. Ryan doesn't do anything with Public Works. He can't drive the truck. He can't plow the snow. He can't run a loader. Buttons can do all of that. His expertise is
How much money you're actually saving by that?
very good at almost everything in public works.
Been there, done that, every
Yeah.
day he's done it all,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's more delegation of duties. It's somebody that's delegating duties, and like you said, you can always run more lean. And somebody that's not in the midst of it sometimes can see a better way to delegate things, in my opinion, but I think that's what he's getting at.
My opinion is that.
Jessica's off the top of her head, and she's looking for it. The savings is around 92,000. Those personnel changes, including benefits. That's
Just in Public Works?
Public Works and Solid Waste.
So what's Ryan's workload gonna look like? I'm trying to make sure he has enough hours in the day to do all this.
He does.
Okay.
He is shifting some responsibilities. The IT people will probably pick up more of the responsibility, and that's a contracted service, and we buy that by the block of time. And the workload on buildings, he has been responsible for making sure all the building projects get completed, or any immediate needs, that has fallen in his lap. That is now going to fall into Button's lap.
Okay.
So
When,
it's just shifting of responsibilities and better oversight. That's what our goal is, to have more people on the ground doing the work, and shifting, so we have one manager over 3 departments.
Okay, does anyone have anything else, Roger?
what I was wondering is, what happened to our IT person? He got fired, or he had to be let go, or he was removed, or whatever you want to call it. That position was never filled, right?
Right.
That got passed on to Ryan.
No,
What
it did
happened?
not.
No,
it did
we
not.
We contracted with
Who did that get passed on to?
We have a contracted service through Advanced Microsystems. We had a contracted service with them to begin with, but we didn't use them as frequently. So we bought, when that position became empty, we contracted more blocks of time, because we buy it in blocks because it's cheaper that way. And we utilize them when we need them, and there's an ongoing monthly maintenance program that they do off, remotely, not here, but, and they show on site, usually once or twice a week if needed.
So Ryan, does he oversee that department at all? Does he have anything to do
He
with
still
it?
is responsible for making sure that if people have problems, they go to him, but we have an online process that they can submit. Any of the department heads can submit a request directly to the individual that takes care of our systems, and he can do it remotely. Usually, if he has to be on site, he comes on site. He's right in Lewiston.
You talked about that quite a bit. I think it was one of our March council meetings.
Yeah.
Remember you talked about that?
If he can take on 2 more departments over and above what he's already doing, has he been underworked and overpaid? And I just think that it's wrong. I think Buttons has done a great job with the public works department.
Let's not get into personnel
I
matters.
know,
But what
I know.
This is not what we're
but-
here for, and that's my job. That's not the job of the council or the advisory board. And it would be totally inappropriate to be discussing personnel problem issues here at this table.
What we need to look
It's
at
It's a
is,
budget problem.
but what Steve has outlined is that the responsibilities that he's picking up are more, because he is taking over 2 more departments, but some of the tasks that he was previously responsible for are being reshifted within those departments. I mean, this happens in every industry out there. I've done it in my own workplace several times over the last couple of years.
Plus, you have certain projects that he has been working on for quite a few years, getting put into place, like the trail. The design of the trail is almost complete. They're going to start doing construction on that this year. And the same thing with the Upland Road. That was a project that he had been working on, and that it will go into, they'll start doing work on that next month, in May. So a lot of the projects, which these projects are ongoing, one project ends and a new project picks up, hopefully. But above and beyond his regular duties, I am confident he can manage this, and we're shifting some of the responsibility to other people to manage our time better.
Steve, I was in your office one time, we were talking about this, and there was actually an individual there mentioning that this is kind of a regular, I would say, regular situation for towns now to have their town engineer oversee their departments actually as a whole and actually work on the budget to actually make sure that all departments are being efficient.
Yeah.
Because really, any project that Public Works does, it's a big project, is overseen by the town engineer. And basically, everything kind of falls back in the town engineer anyway, so I mean, it's mainly just putting me in place. If he's gonna be part of the team,
He's been working hand in hand with Public Works since he's been here, helping manage projects, road projects and things like that, where his expertise are needed. And,
That's a criteria for the job, pretty much.
Yeah,
is
it's a
what it is.
criteria for the job, so. Okay. What you have before you is I'll walk you through, and we'll start, there's no change in the elected officials. In the town manager's budget, what we've done, we have shifted the professional development for Jody. We've moved that to the Economic Development Office, so it comes under the TIF funding. And then then you have the wage increase, which is still in my operating budget. Contingency hasn't changed. Insurance has decreased, and that's through some of the personnel changes that we have. And same thing with retirement. Some changes there, which are reflected through personnel. FICA. Assessing, what we've done is we have put $80,000 into the assessing budget for the reval, and that will be something over a 4-year period. Mr. Van Tynen did say he could manage that.
I thought that was going out to bid. Now, Mr. Van Tynen is going to be doing the,
He's under contract with us, and right now it's $80,000 that's going into the budget, under the assessing budget, to pay for a reval for the first year.
so it's not going out to bid.
I can't say that. It isn't. That's not what we're here talking about, funding a reval.
It's not even, the funds haven't even been approved yet.
Yeah,
so I
first we
mean,
gotta
it's
have
just
the money approved before we can start doing anything.
You consider shopping around just to see, when we do get to that point, would you consider
Yeah.
looking and just
I've shopped
comparing
around
prices?
since I've first been here, and I know what the costs are, but I'll definitely request costs as well out there to see what they are. We do that normally.
Right, no, I know.
That's
But
just a
might be
standard
cheaper now than they
procedure.
were a couple of years ago with the
That's what
economy the way it is. Never know.
On the finance department, we are cutting a position to part-time there. That's still, the same, 55. That hasn't changed since our last. Economic development, we did move, that's 7,700. You'll see near the bottom of the page, that's been moved, taken out of the budget as it's being funded through TIFs. If you jump down to the police department, 02-200, we have moved the computer stuff into technology, so there's a decrease there. We've moved the telephone service into the town building budget like all the rest. And it reflects a wage increase of 1.75. And also, we put back a position that we had initially talked about removing, but that's back in this budget. There's some things we're working on. If you jump down to Public Works, throughout the discussions, there was some overtime numbers that were overlooked and didn't get put into the request. We've added that in. We have reduced temporary wages by $23,000. Added back in $3,500 for signs. That was another oversight. And we added an additional $500 for the Green Thumb Gang, to make it $1,500. On the solid waste, 310. The changes there, we have an increase 1.75 for all the, for one of the employees, and then there's a 8% increase to another, and we've added a part-time position there. You've seen a reduction in temporary wages, and we did not add a 1.75 to that. Rec department, 04-405, we reduced the cell phone charges there. And we've added 5,000 to supplies, and the wage adjustment is still in there as well. We, the debt service includes an adjustment for taking the reval out of the bond, so there's a reduction there. And so we're just including an increase in the interest of 9. This particular, all these changes that we have made, still based on what we have on revenues. We're still under budget from last year, and we expect the tax rate to remain the same, $21 per thousand.
Okay, now if you're taking out the $64,000 for economic development, I mean, are you taking out the $64,000 in income that you moved to the TIF? Is that also removed to the other side? Because, you know, that was money that was going to the general fund last year, and now we're moving it, you know, to the economic development. So, I mean, they need to wash out each other. And so I'm just worried that it looks like we're moving economic development off the balance sheet here, but I don't see that, you know, we're accounting for that on the other side in terms of revenues. Is that filtered in there? See what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
In the tax rate calculation, we adjusted for the value of that TIF property.
Okay.
We reduced for the value of the TIF property.
Right.
So that would kind of be the revenue side of it.
Right, okay, yeah.
There's no specific revenue
Right,
source for economic development. But the valuation was reduced by the value of that TIF property being sheltered.
Okay.
You say the tax rate is 21 or 2105 or?
21. The tax rate currently is $21 per thousand, and we expect it to stay as $21 per thousand.
All the information you're getting so far, there's really no other factors that are going to be a player in that, as far as for what we know from the state, as far as for revenue sharing or
We
excise.
budgeted on the revenue side the low number. If Governor LePage's budget passes, our revenue sharing will stay at 830, roughly 800. I said 840. We budgeted a little bit less, 830,000. If his budget fails, we could potentially earn up to 1.2 million in revenue sharing. But if it if the budget passes, then the school will see an increase.
balance.
It's a balance. So
Basically, it gets shifted to the other side.
yeah. So we are anticipating the lower end. And it came out of committee that they would fund, they'd maintain the formula of how it's distributed, but the funding would be less. It would be, instead of 130 million, it'd be 94 million. So we're basing it on the being funded at 94 million, which is the low end.
So when we talk about 55% revenue sharing, and they're not paying
Oh,
that now, so is
55%
it down
for
to
school
35
funding?
now, and then
Yeah.
they don't pay for the rest of
Yeah.
that?
If you ask them, they are funding at 50.
Actually, they just change the numbers to make it work. It's easy enough.
They put it in a different budget line.
They just change the ratio of what they actually feel they're necessary in essential services. They're not in Augusta for no reason,
I don't know.
right? Well, they can make the numbers work, right?
Some.
So how are people feeling about this budget? Are we confident in this, or do we have changes, concerns? What's going on? How's it feel?
I want to ask Steve, we had a couple of people that were getting $10,000 raises. And
Yes.
you were gonna, Mike had an idea and you.
Yeah, we, what you see here reflects the increases that we're recommending to the wage adjustments. If I was asked to look at spreading it over time, I put together, which I think I sent to everybody, a spreadsheet on doing it over a 2-year period. And Mike had some other recommendations, but I think the 2-year, if you're going to do it that way, if you do it any longer than 2 years, I don't think there's one adjustment that we're making that falls within the average of what that position pays. So you're still behind a bit, but if you go longer, you'll just get farther behind, I think. That's my thought process, so.
And the question in regards to that, I saw the packet that you handed out. Was this a widespread wage analysis, not just looking at certain positions, but I mean, how many other people within the community may be affected by being lower than peers in other communities of similar size?
How many, can you just ask?
How many other positions might there be in the town that would need wage adjustments over
On the
a period of
spreadsheet
time?
that I sent you, it had more people on it, those are the ones that there is the largest discrepancy.
Okay. So what you were looking to do was...
I had planned to do it,
reduce the
some this
disparity.
year and some next year. But we're looking at a total, if you do everything, and you spread it over a 2-year period, the cost this year is $26,000, and the cost next year is just over $19,000.
I'm curious as to what communities were included in this survey. Cape Elizabeth has population similar to Lisbon, but you cannot compare those communities, some communities, with Lisbon as far as wages, income. Some communities have properties valued far in excess of what Lisbon has, so
The wage comparisons, that the numbers came from MMA. Okay, they were done, and if you read the study that was done, it was based on, the study was based on towns within the same population range of Lisbon. It was also based on towns that are within the same service capacity, that have all the same departments that we have, and they're funding all these positions. That's the basis of the study. And if you had read this, you would know that it's not taking into consideration length of service. So you have some employees here, as you do in other communities, that have 28 to 30 some odd years of service. That
well, I did read it, but then again, different towns have different economic value statuses, so it's hard to compare Lisbon to some of the other communities.
Well, you can't compare somebody's job value and the job that they do, the education that they have, the experience they have. I mean, there are people that work in jobs every day and have more experience than others, and generally, those people are paid more.
I hear you, but then again, in economics, we cannot compare to some other, we compare more favorably to some communities and a lot less favorably to other communities economically. So how can you expect people that make $10, $15 to $20 to $30,000 a year to pay the taxes on a budget when other communities, the average wage is $50, $60, $70,000 a year per capita?
Oftentimes, that's why good employees move on, because you can't afford to pay them. I'm not saying
That's
So
what
be
I'm
it.
clear as to the point that you're trying to make. then. If you're, let's use somebody that's got a salary of $35,000 a year,
Yeah.
and they live in the community and work in the community, are you in favor of this wage adjustment, or are you not in favor of it?
You have to take into consideration what taxpayers can afford to pay.
I mean, the problem, Dot, though, is
You
that
can't-
an employee isn't gonna take into consideration. They're gonna say, well, I'm making 35 here, and with my skills, I can make 50 somewhere else, and they won't even try to pay me 40. I'm not gonna hang around and take that.
Well, then, if
That's what-
it's,
That's why we have unemployment officer.
that's,
Well, you know, if you need a certain skill, and the market says the value of that skill is $40,000, and you don't pay it, you're gonna have trouble getting anyone with that skill, and we have to just decide if we can't afford that skill.
The town-
so are
The
you gonna
point that I'm
tax
trying to-
people out of their homes?
Dot.
But
Finish.
let's not, I mean, we gotta try to avoid getting into the first, you know, the actual position of it.
Yeah.
But what I just heard you say is you're talking about a community that economically may not be able to afford it. The positions that we're talking about when we look at this budget are people that live in this community. And so if it's all
Some do,
right,
some don't.
the ones we are talking about live in this community. So if they're at 35,000 and they're working for the town of Lisbon, we're looking to do a wage adjustment, I'll just say $5,000. It's gonna make it better for them to want to stay in this community. Otherwise, they can go someplace else and make 50,000 and just pay their taxes
But
here
a
and
lot
not
of-
contribute to
A
it.
lot of people that are making that, you
And
know.
can I just make a
our
point?
employees don't live here in town, so
The
You,
ones that are on the table for wage increases live in this town.
they do.
Yes, they do. And the other thing you need to keep in mind is that the adjustments that are on the table have little to no total impact on the mill rate. What is presented in front of you, which includes those wage adjustments, come in at a flat tax rate. And getting rid of them, changing them, is not gonna change your tax rate. It's not gonna change it.
in the town has a policy, they have a personnel policy that states in it, under compensation, that they will,
Would you like to read it?
I would like to read.
We did that before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right there.
I mean, I'd prefer to see it phased in
Is
over a
the-
couple of years, you know, but you know, I think they need something.
I think the quality of the work that they do is very important. The value they give us as a town is very important. And I understand part that, you know, times are tough, but times are tough for everybody. And
Well, a lot of town employees have been getting step increases, so,
That's not the non-union, that's not the non-union employees. That's, some of them have, but, and they're still underpaid, Dot. So the intent of the town, it says here, Dot, to be paid salaries and compensation for comparable public and private work in the area that will attract and retain well-qualified employees. That's any goal of any organization, it's not just the town of Lisbon, is to pay competitive wages so you attract and retain good people. And I think we have good people in this organization. And a study was requested of me when I first came here to look at it, so obviously, at that time, the question was out there, are we paying competitively to retain and keep people? And we need, and in some areas you are, in some areas you aren't. But this is, you know, this was a, you know, we had this study done in 2008. Some of the numbers that I sent to you are the most recent from the MMA website, from compare the same towns. And we haven't made this recommendation until we felt this was a year that we could do something, because we were able to bring the tax rate in flat. We were able to get all of our services on the same level we have. We aren't going to see any decrease in service level. And it would be a good time to do that.
Steve, taking it over a 2-year period, from what the numbers I've seen from the initial requests for the people versus the second request, if we do it over a 2-year period and actually try to make less of an impact, you'd actually be adjusting more personnel over the 2-year plan than you were the first year, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, I would think my recommendation would be is actually step it for a 2-year, take care of the bulk of the people that actually need to be readjusted, and the impact would be limited on both years, but yet, after the second year, I would kind of understand that we'd be somewhat close to where we need to be as far as for most of the people that were
I think
efficient,
so.
right?
being involved in several of the hiring processes of recent people that we've hired, when people send in a resume and they send in their packet, they generally put a salary requirement on there. And some of them we've just tossed because
We can't afford it.
we can't afford them. They're people from big cities or other states, and we can't afford them. But generally, the ones that we keep and are most qualified are the ones that are in line with what is paid in the state of Maine. And that's what people require, according to their education, their experience, that's what they require, and that's what it is. And it's been said, that's how you keep good employees.
Right, supply and demand.
Yeah, it
You have
is.
the supply of labor and you have the demand of what we need, and, where they meet, we don't set that point.
I'm wondering where in the budget you're gonna find the $5,700 to move the two-car garage for the fire department in Lisbon.
That's actually not this budget at all.
It's not this budget.
It's not this.
Last year.
It would actually have to be done in the budget that's already being
Already
in
current
function, yeah.
The big thing that I question is, the government has not given any increases to our elderly through Social Security since 2008, because the cost of living hasn't gone up, according to them. So why is it an issue for us if it's all right for the government? What, we're doing better than the rest of the world is?
Do you want me to answer that?
Well, it depends on how you, I'd like to think we actually we presented a very competitive and a good budget and are living within our means.
If that's the case, Steve, then why aren't we taking money that we have left over in our prior bonds and fixing the Fisher Road Bridge and trying to find money within our budget to fix a roof at the MTM Center and not have to burden the people of the community that are already limited out for another bond?
Because either or, I mean, the project's actually big enough that would actually have to be voted on regardless. I mean, to do a $130,000 project on a roof, it regardless would have to go
Oh,
to vote,
vote.
you know what I mean?
But
But-
the money could be found within what we have right now if we wanted to tighten it up.
I don't see any $130,000 gaps. I mean, I see, we're talking, smaller gaps, not
Was it
130,000.
your intent to hope that this budget came in with a significant reduction in the budget so that the mill rate would go from $21 per thousand to a lower?
No, I would rather see it stay at 21 and find money to do a couple of the projects that we need to do, not necessarily want to do.
Well, where would we find that? You seem
Well,
to think that
for one
there's a
thing,
place.
I wouldn't have, increases would have been out of the question. If our people that are paying taxes are not getting increases, why should the people of the town get
What's the
increases?
full value of all the increases?
The 1.75 is under 47,000.
Okay, that's half of the roof at the MTM.
Looks
No, it's like a quarter of it.
1/3 of it.
It's 1/3, okay?
Okay, say these projects go out to bond and the town turns them down.
That's the right of the voter, isn't it? We've talked
And
about
then
that
Did you
often,
get a
haven't
pay
we?
raise this
Yes,
year?
we have.
What's
I
that?
know Social Security did, but did you get a pay raise this year?
Did
But-
I
yeah,
personally?
Yeah.
Absolutely I
Okay,
did.
and so did I. And so when
Absolutely I
you
did.
start looking around, I realized that Social Security didn't get a cost of living
Those are the
adjustment
people we
this
represent.
year.
We represent everyone.
And
Roger.
I understand that, but.
There may not be a need on you make the comment that Social Security didn't provide for cost of living increases. The people that are on the table have been severely underpaid for years. This is not a cost of living adjustment. This is a wage adjustment to get them where they should be. They should be paid according to your policy in the charter, to be fair and equitable among other public employment areas, and as well as private, I believe it says. So you have not been following your policy for years with these people. And we are giving you a budget that will not affect the elderly that are on Social Security, because the tax rate is not increasing with this. The tax rate's staying flat. So even if you get rid of them, it's going to be 21.
There's other provisions as well, if it really was a hardship for those folks that the rest of us can help out with as well through, the abatement process or the forgiveness process and whatever the terminology is for that. I mean,
Exactly.
So next year, if we come around and we're a couple $100,000, $300,000 shortfall, we can start laying these people off, instead of making preparations
If that's your
now.
council recommendation, that's your recommendation, Roger. The recommendation in front of you is a
The problem
flat
is
budget.
that we have a situation right now in the economy that we've never had to deal with as adults in our lives.
We've
right
dealt,
now.
this is the fourth budget that we have dealt with in this economy. And we have been able to maintain our level of service. We have been able to keep employees working and give small amount of increases. They went 1 year without an increase voluntarily, okay? And even though you had contracts that we were legally bound to pay increases to, they forego that. They went forego that wage and did what everybody else did. They held the line, okay? Our job, my staff and myself, is to present a budget to you that we think is fair, we think is fiscally responsible, and is keeping the tax rate flat. And we were able to still get done. If the public approves all the projects on the bond, you're finishing your buildings, you're fixing them, which you haven't done for over 20 years, okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these problems. And we're paying our people competitive wages, and we're maintaining a level of service.
Which is
What's wrong
what
with that, Roger?
The people surveyed said they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hear what you're saying, Laurie, too, but then there are people that are too proud to ask for assistance or tax reductions that, you know, my oil and gas prices have gone up the same as everybody else, but my income has not gone up. Matter of fact, it's gone down.
But the
And,
programs are in place for those people that ask. We can't make that. We can only
I know,
provide
but a
them,
lot of
and they
people
are
are too
provided.
proud.
And they'll come in and-
A lot of people
All
are
there
too
is to
proud
it.
to
They
ask
won't
when they
ask
go
for it.
without
Right.
food and
That could
medication.
be watching Seinfeld.
No, that's their choice, but some people are proud.
Yeah. Would you like to hear the advisory board's recommendations?
Well, that's sure, absolutely. What do you guys
Let's
think?
hear 'em.
What's your thoughts?
Okay, this is from all of us as a unit. Mill rate, hold it as it is, which appears to have been done, so great job with that. When we do the bonding, it was suggested, which seems to make a lot of sense, is make sure the public knows everything about our existing deficit budget. So the idea we thought of possibly doing that when they come in to vote on the bonds, have on the wall someplace, this is our existing bonds, this is the total amount, so they at least have a clue what else is already there, so they
I
can
believe that
address,
is
like,
listed on
okay,
the
we already
website.
have this amount that we're in debt, do we want to go more, or, okay, that's okay, maybe we can go a little more. This way they have a figure there, because I know you've addressed that a couple of times.
Or
That's
post it-
part of the treasurer's report that has to go on the bond question.
Or
Okay.
post it
To list
on
them.
each voting booth.
It has on the ballot.
It's on the
ballot.
ballot.
Okay, it's on the ballot.
The amount,
And the ballot
total
said that.
bonding,
Increased by.
total
Okay.
bond
Right.
outstanding is on the ballot.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can do a bigger, blown-up version would be good,
Yeah.
too, just for people to see.
We were concerned a little bit because it had been addressed a few times by several people that our undesignated funds is getting to rock bottom. It wouldn't help much, but the wage raises that are proposed, just freeze them and do only the 1.75% increase. Not talking a whole lot of difference, maybe in a year or two, our economy, we could do that, but this way, that's a tiny bit more money going in. Won't change the tax rate, but just a little bit more money in undesignated funds, which would help. All the capital projects, bond them all, or set them up for bond, do them separately, which has already been talked about. You folks are already doing what we want, this is great. Fisher Road Bridge, our understanding was there is enough money to do it right now, but not enough money to also do the paving. Well, do the Fisher Road Bridge within our budget now and bond out the cost of paving, or if we can find it somewhere else, great. Reevaluation definitely has to get done. Let's not bond it, let's do it with the budget, which you're already doing, so great job with that.
Yeah, we should let him speak first. What? We should let him speak.
Right.
The Public Works addition that was proposed, we are recommending you hold on this, not recommend it. If you want to go out to bond, okay, but we're recommending no, hold on that. We've held this many years. If it's ADA, well, it's gone this long, another year or two, shouldn't
Is
make a
there
difference.
quality issues too, though, isn't there, Steve?
Yeah, there's air quality issues.
Now, would the change with Ryan taking over, would that lessen the need for that? If, you know, some of those functions are gonna be done here rather than there, or?
You still have vendors and people coming into the building all the time. You still have, Darla's gonna be there working in an unhealthy environment. And you have the foreman and Button still
Okay,
have
so
a
still no
working
use there.
office
Yeah.
area that they need to have, so.
If you want to leave, I'm going to email these things to Steve to get to you.
Oh,
to all the
sure.
rest of you folks, that way. Okay. Those are our recommendations.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So the only real
We
difference is
try, once in a while.
you guys are opposed to the, like, the increase of the $10,000, is that the one you were saying?
We're thinking we need to save every penny
Okay.
we can to try and put in there just to give ourselves a little bit more of a slush fund.
Yeah.
As far as being handicapped accessible, I had to stop over to the Public Works the other day, and it happened to be lunch break time, and their lunch room is downstairs, so could the offices be moved downstairs and the lunchroom upstairs?
It still
to make
doesn't
it-
solve the handicap accessibility issue.
Well, it would solve it for residents or vendors going in. They wouldn't have to go up the stairs. The only ones would be going upstairs are the employees and.
And what if they're handicapped?
Hmm?
And what if they're handicapped?
Well,
ADA isn't just for the citizens of the community, it's for the employers
then we
and
get food.
employees as well.
It's for any possible person that could go into that building.
they have those stair chairs that electric go up and downstairs. That's a possibility for the Public Works Department.
It's pretty sad, I have no idea how much they are, but they are pretty costly.
Yeah. Something to look into if the
You probably could
project gets
find
shut down.
a,
Well, the public will decide.
Right. Public doesn't want it, we'll have to find whatever cheap solution we
You
can try.
You know, you asked me if I had gotten a raise this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we also put people with 32 years on the street, too.
You're not on the street yet, Roger.
I'm going. It's time.
Well, that's just like everybody else. Everybody's gonna cut back.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Just going back, only for clarification, because I'm not sure that I either heard it or understood it. Under the 01-140 town buildings, there is some increases in here, and if I remember correctly, there was some joining of budgets. So like the electricity
Yep,
is an increase of 66,000, if I remember correctly, that's come from different places?
yes,
Okay. Natural gas, same thing?
yep,
Because it's not a change in a price increase, it's just a
Right,
coordination of
correct.
everything. Telephone, I wasn't sure about that one, 5275 was $13,000.
yep, it's just the consolidation from telephone originally being under multiple departments.
Has a provision been made, going back to the electricity and the natural gas for the additional building that I'm assuming we're going to be taking back over the Lisbon Emergency Building if they vacate that?
We're probably, I think the recommendation will come from code enforcement and the public safety people that we tear that building down. It's coming apart.
It's got, what, like a 10-degree lean already?
It's already
That's
got the
pretty
lean,
bad.
but.
Kind of a
the walls are
landmark
coming
though,
apart.
don't you think? You know,
Yeah,
it
it's
kind
been
of,
around forever.
We might have a fire station that's used for.
The leaning
training.
building of Lisbon.
it kind of sets your pace when you're driving by, you know, you kind of know.
yeah,
The 5410, no, wait a minute, the 5400 has got an $11,000 increase, that's for the buildings. Is that like preventative maintenance or what?
I believe it includes preventative work as well as potential project, things that are on a timeline, schedule of maintenance and looking.
Yeah, we
Like service
that we had
contracts,
yeah.
money in the budget to do, rip out some carpet and do some tile work. That's in there,
Okay.
instead of putting it on a bond.
Equipment under 5410?
It's the same thing, instead of buildings, it's for the equipment.
Is the equipment necessary to operate those buildings?
Yeah.
Am I missing something? If you move telephone and gas from one department, one budget to another budget, is that a savings or is it just moving it from?
It's just a shift.
So how is it a savings?
It's not.
It's just looking at it as a whole, so that it's not really,
It's
like
an
if
easier
I
way-
looked at it in the years past, you look at telephone on one budget, another budget, another budget, who would think to stop and add up every single one of those to see, wow, it's like really $13,000 a year for a total amount. Kind of like what Roger was saying about
Make it
mileage. I
easier
mean,
then.
if we put mileage all on one budget, people would probably have more to say about it than if it's separated out in a budget.
Is there a way to monitor, though, if there's an abuse in any department with either one of those? I mean, are you monitoring bills or?
They still come in
I know we still have
reports,
purchase
so
orders and all those kinds of things, but,
they still can monitor which buildings they come from. So, I mean, if you want to know what heats in each building or electricity in each building, it's still
I should say abuse, but,
Well, we
Or
track,
use
just as we're removing lights.
concerns.
um,
yeah.
overhead lights, we'll track as they, as they come down. Of course, you'll have to compare it to the cost. Hopefully the cost would stay status, but you don't know that. And see, like last year, I think it was reduced by 10,000, I think, what our usage was. And we're hoping that with the reduction of lights on the outlying areas, street lights, we'll see a reduction there.
You haven't seen any, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask too. You've done that study, but that hasn't come to pass, whether any
Well,
streetlights have been
we
removed and disabled.
gave the listing to CNP for what lights we wanted to take out, and I haven't checked with Ryan to see if they've actually started removing them, but I would imagine this is the time that summer where they'd start looking to take them out.
Mark, in a matter of time, would it be worthwhile, since we've heard the advisory board, to actually go through the councilors one by one so they can make their recommendations? So if we come to a consensus, we can... Oh, excuse me. Well, you're not first then.
Just for clarification, under the town clerk, it looks like there might be an increase of a part-time person there. And,
Under what, under the
the
wages?
5110
It's just the 1.75 increase.
times all three of the people.
Under the 5110,
Yeah.
it's only one assistant clerk.
Yes, that's what I said, a part-time.
Yeah.
clerk.
Yeah.
So and is that adding back the position that we had?
No, that line just reflects a 1.75 on the salary.
I think I'm confused. It says a 27.91% increase, and it's $14,519.
Did you say town clerk?
No, that's contracted
Oh, tax
services.
collector, sorry.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
there
I'm
you
sorry,
are.
I'm like, the
Like-
town
Oh,
clerk.
yeah, what the heck of a part-time I have.
Wow. That's why it's not making sense to
Yeah,
me, sorry,
the
tax collector.
5110 under the tax collector, is
Sorry, Twyla, I was
allowing,
trying to add to your staff there.
is
We're
adding
giving that to
for-
Twyla.
It's adding a 1.75 for the 2 full-time counter clerks and allowing a provision for a part-time person to come back.
And the other question there answered. I think you guys have answered this already, but with the scary predictions out there, I know that we bid out for gas and we get locked in prices. Gas
We have
for
to go back
automobile.
out.
We have to go back out. for
Because
the
we
process.
we don't bid on gasoline. We're at the mercy of the market and we pay less tax. So that we can't lock in on. But on the heating fuel, we put it out to bid with the school, and the day of the opening, the school had got a call from the gas company, the natural gas, that they were going to discontinue using the oil burners and start using natural gas. So those bids become void because now we got to go back out because it's smaller quantity. And we haven't done that yet. I'm kind of hoping that the price will go down, but it continues to climb.
Yeah.
So we could actually wait possibly until the end of the summer.
Could we go in with another
During those times,
municipality or
I put them in
something and try?
Excuse me?
We go in with another municipality with the same problem that we have and buy,
We could certainly talk to some of the local communities to see what they're doing and see if they would partner with us. That's a good idea.
Could get 2 or 3 to do it together, you might be a huge
Yeah.
saving.
We're also looking at possibly seeing, Scott Benson is kind of talking with the people from Brunswick Housing, and we think we found a way to get them natural gas coming from 196 up School Street, and we are looking at doing that with the MTM building. So there's a cost involved, and we haven't finalized how that would work, but I think it might be something that we can do. So, and that's been, the public's been asking for that over in that direction. I'd hoped they'd come up Main Street, but that's a bit of a lot more distance for them to do it. To start, at least into the Lisbon Falls area.
But currently, where the numbers here do not allow for an increase as of
So if the school isn't going to use heating oil anymore, can we drain their tank and put it in another building?
I think they've already made, plans on, they still have other buildings that still burn oil, so.
Yeah, I think it's just the high school and the slug school.
All right, I'm done now. Okay.
You can continue on if you want, that's fine, don't let me
I
stop
just
you.
need to clarify it. crazy price to do that.
Okay, so we want to go around, those are suggestions for now.
I think it's a good idea. That way there we all know at least where we stand and give them a direction to move forward. I mean, I'm not sure how many more nights that
Right.
we're gonna.
Well,
Talk
one of the
about-
things, you have, next week, you have a public hearing, and then after that, you'll have your regular council meeting. So I think we need to be prepared to at least make recommendations from the council, what you're looking at, and so the public can weigh in on that, at that point. And then you can go back to the drawing board if they hang you up and tar and feather you along with me.
So you want to start, Lori? or-
Sure, I'll
Okay.
start. I think that the department heads and the manager did what we asked them to do, and that was to come in with a budget that's flat. I have been a nervous Nelly all the way through, and I still talk to Steve and throw it in there a little bit about, I would like to say revenue sharing. So, and he assures me that he's put worst case scenario numbers in the budget so that if we'll fare okay, either way. Not great, but okay. So hearing, because I too was one of them, was questioning the wage adjustments, can we do it over a period of time? You know, can we phase it in? How many more people are affected? What's gonna end up happening to us? But when you take $20,000 or $30,000 back out of the budget, at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference when you're talking about a $7 million, $6 million budget. So I'm in favor of going forward with the budget that we have presented.
Okay, so that's one in favor of going as presented, okay. So, Nina, what do you think?
I have two concerns. Number one is this, the reval. I think we have a lot of proving ourselves to do with that, after last year's tax situation. I think that we need to be sure everything's in order. I think we need to be sure that we do send it out to bid. That's my opinion. I'm just concerned that I've talked to several citizens, and one of the first things they mention is the reval. They're not making my taxes go up anymore, and so we need to be very, very cautious with that. And the other issue that I have is the wage increases. I'm not against them. I do understand, as I explained earlier, that these people have been grossly underpaid for a long time, but I would like to see it spread out over a 2-year period. I just think it would calm some nerves, and hopefully we can help others along the way that might need to have those wage adjustments also. I think you've all done a great job in trying to keep things in check, and once again, as Lori said, the revenue sharing is always an iffy little area, but hopefully we can hold, or the state holds it where it is at now and what we figured. Those are my main concerns. I still feel we need to see how the public further and just talk about those few things.
Hey, Bern, what do you think?
Oh, no, I think it's been a good budget. I mean, all coming through, I mean, and Steve knows, I've been in his office enough times to go over a lot of this stuff. I like to see the changes that have already been put in the budget. I think it reflects, again, it's coming back from advisory board that we're pretty much on the same page where we need to be. The number one goal we came in this year is we didn't want to lose services, and we wanted to come in with not just a flat, but a 0% increase. I mean, that's two different numbers, but I think working with the school and by the sounds of where they're at and where we're at, I think we're going to be able to do that, which is really amazing, because things do go up, and unfortunately we're still keeping the price down, so that's a bonus. The only thing that I probably would like to see changed on this budget, the way it's presented right now, is the wage increases actually affect a few people with this budget. Sitting with Steve, and with his last proposal is there's a half a dozen up to 8 people that really need to be adjusted. I would rather see it done over a 2-year period and fairly done for all the people, so at the end of 2 years we're actually put this to rest and just move on with our regular increases at that point, instead of doing part of it this year, next year, and have to regroup for the following people after. I think employees in town have been here a long time, deserve to be paid correctly, but I think it's really hard to pick which ones you do this year and which ones you do next year. If we find an unbalance, I think it's better to correct it all one time and just stage it up so everybody's coming into play at the same time. And that's really the only question I have is, how do you pick and choose? It's better off if we just figure out where we need to be and phase it over a couple of years, and then at the end of a couple of years, have everybody where they need to be, so. And that's my recommendation, but besides that, I think we met the requirements we asked from the beginning, and it's really hard to beat on that, really are. I mean, as far as for citizens, and we're, a 0% would be a 0%, which would be a bonus.
Roger?
I did what Vern said, except the fact that I think there's a lot of unsung heroes in the town, and it's not only in the management field of the town. I think that there's a lot of employees in the town that are very, very underpaid. But trying to correct the situation in 1 year that has taken 20 years to get here is a little bit more than I think we should have done at one time, and it's gonna set a whole bunch of bad feelings throughout the town and the employees because of it, especially the way that it's being done in Public Works. I think that's a terrible thing, because you've got a lot of unsung heroes in Public Works that are out there, you know, at night beating their brains out trying to keep the roads open, and you're putting somebody up ahead of them that I don't feel that should be taken care of in 1 year. If it was spread out, it would have been a little less offensive. Also, putting other people on the street to make this kind of thing happen, I don't think is right either. I think that's wrong. I would have rather seen these people keep their jobs. Besides that, the whole increase at this time with the people in the town suffering the way that they are, and believe me, they are suffering, I think it's not going to be well received, but whatever. We're going to have to go with what we got.
Roger? What do you think?
I'm gonna go along with Gina on just about everything on the budget, the way I look at it. I do have the same two issues, but I was told by more than one person, elderly and non, that what was done last year is done. And they didn't want their taxes to go up this year. I think we've done the job. So as long as it stays this way, I guess I'm gonna have to say they did a good job.
All right. Well, I
It's
think
overall great job on the budget.
What do you guys think? You know, chime in again? I mean,
I think, did I forget anything of what we talked about that we all agreed on as a group?
okay. And, you know, I agree with a lot of the stuff that the rest of the council's been saying, that, you know, I think we did a good job holding it to 0. I'm a little concerned about the, you know, sudden step raises. I agree with it in principle. I think it would be better to phase it in over a couple of years, and, you know, maybe try to make it a little more broad, as Fern suggested, to make sure that there's, you know, people that don't feel left out, that are, you know, also severely underpaid, that are gonna have morale issues there if they feel, why didn't I get it this year and somebody else did? You know, there's a couple people that I can see on the pay scale that are just as underpaid as the people that are getting increases, so it's something to be careful about. Let's see, I think I'm in agreement other than that. So, you know, if we can try to find a way to phase that in over 2 years, seems to be the majority of council's thinking here.
So phase it in over 2 years, but hit all of the people that are affected by it, so that you're spreading it across more people? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's a couple people that are in that same kind of range of being underpaid, about 40% or more comparatively to the.
Well, the reason why I asked about it was maybe I didn't read it the right way or understand it the right way, but if there's, as I was saying, if there's more people,
Right.
I didn't take it that the people that are in this budget were the only ones being phased in over 2 years. I guess what I'm asking is, are you looking to take all of the people that are listed and phase all of them in?
I sent a
over 2 years?
spreadsheet to you on Friday, that listed more people that had fairly substantial
Disparities.
Yeah, and put them in there as well, and tried to bring them within the average of what the salary surveys were.
Right, and even if it's the same amount of money, if you can
And
get
we
more
can go
people
back
over
and
time.
revisit
I
that.
was gonna say, I guess that maybe I need to do that, because it doesn't look like the numbers have been adjusted to reflect that what if.
Yeah.
It's looking like, to me, just 3 people, particularly in this budget, maybe
The
4.
numbers in front of you reflect the initial recommendation.
4.
for
It
this.
doesn't reflect the other
It doesn't reflect the
people.
phase-in. It does not reflect the phase-in.
I'm unsympathetic for people that you people consider underpaid. You know, they've been here for a long time. they've been getting cost of living wage increases, and they've been getting step increases. What concerns me is some of our infrastructure, especially the MTM roof, really needs to be replaced. What if the townspeople voted down the bond issues? Then what? How do you people plan on coming up with the money for these repairs?
I think we'd have to do the same thing we did this year. I mean, the roof actually leaked and the town actually paid to actually have a professional person come in and repair it. And not to say that's the ideal thing, but it's a
Keep
thing that we
repairing.
do with all our buildings, unfortunately, I mean, and
Do what you can, and if it goes back, that shows the people that they really need the money to do that.
I mean, I think this year's, some of the repairs were done on most of the buildings weren't just, bubble gum and a crack. I think that some of the repairs we've done are actually more substantial, so I mean, and if,
Especially MTM roof.
yeah, it's not the ideal 100% good fix, but I think we're not just overlooking it. I think, there was a fair amount of money spent on repairs on certain things this year, and it came out of our building fund, and is it perfect? Absolutely not, but I mean, unfortunately, I think if the people vote it down, you gotta just try to work with what you have to make it work.
We're losing income with the Head Start being not there, so.
But I think we've actually spent a lot more this year on the roof than we can get from income from Head Start, I would think, but, I mean,
Probably true.
yeah,
So
so I
when you
mean,
get out there and tell the
I don't know
people
if
how badly
anybody
you
saw
need
the
it.
building.
yeah. I think we're actually trying to repair it the best way we can, is what I'm trying to say.
Worse than
Yeah.
when we went on the tour,
Oh, yeah.
because it was pretty wet.
Oh, I think, well, that was right after it happened, right before it happened, so it's, plus there's mold issues there, so. It's a
It
building.
shouldn't be overlooked, but it's something we just need to address as we can, that's
I think
all.
the people, they're gonna have a choice. If they want it, they should go for it. If they don't want it, they have to accept that the end result of that maybe they don't have that facility there anymore, if they're not willing to pay for it. That's the reality of it under.
And we hope that they would look at the repercussions for that, not just as a.
Well, what we'll do is we'll make adjustments in all the spreadsheet, your budget sheets where the changes will be. We'll make some changes in our presentation to reflect what you've talked about here, and that's what we'll show the public on Tuesday night, and see what their reaction is. The show. They've had a lot of time that has been out there, so.
So we have better turnout.
Yep.
Just once again, I've talked to several people in the last week, and there's a lot of misinformation out there again this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's very maddening, and some of the people I've talked with that happen to be in the room are people that should know better, but it's out there, as usual.
It is.
Yep.
Some things don't change,
No,
Well, that's the way it is.
Ron White said it perfectly. You
Okay.
can't fix stupid.
no, you can't.
Tracy Austin said.
Probably said it too.
What's the status of the Rumble Mill?
We don't have any definitive information except for the fact that we have the gentleman who was here one night, Anthony, who is still the big buyer. There has been no contract signed. There has been no